Hi, Alan Cox here. Last time we introduced you to adaptive protection, and we talked about adaptive protection, kind of a high level, an overview, some of the configuration settings, how to enable it, and kind of how it can apply in our environment. We talked about how it can be used in DLP policies as well as conditional access policies in order to get the right level of protection dynamically and rather than statically. Today, I want to talk about DLP policies and how we can use adaptive protection. Not all risks are the same, not all people are the same, not all risky people are the same. And so, what we want to do is we want to be able to allow adaptive protection to kind of make those decisions based on user behavior for us. And we're going to start with DLP policy and how we can apply adaptive protection in DLP, data loss prevention policies. That's going to be our topic today, so let's get started. All right, now that we have gone over how to set up basic setup of adaptive protection, I want to dive into how we can apply that to DLP policy specifically. So we'll take a look at that. So let's start here. Let's go back to our solutions here and let's go to insider risk management. And then we're going to go to adaptive protection. So we'll go to adaptive protection. We'll look at this insider risk levels. So we go to insider risk levels. You can see I've got some insider risk policies here, and these are pretty much just what you see here. Insider risk policies, and we so inside adaptive protection, insider risk levels, we can go and we can say, okay, so for the adaptive protection policy for insider risk management, this is just kind of a base policy. We can see kind of what what an elevated risk, moderate risk, and minor risk may look like. Remember, we talked about this. We can go in and edit these things inside that policy, and kind of what makes up a elevated risk, moderate risk, etc. For any of these given policies. So with that, we're going to go back to we are going to go to dashboard here, and we can see we have no DLP policies created here. So we can actually go here and go into DLP and create a DLP policy that will utilize adaptive protection. And so remember, adaptive protection basically can crank up the policy tightness, if you will, or actions, depending on the level of riskiness of that user, right? So that's basically what we're talking about. So so it's not a kind of a one policy fits all. It can kind of, we actually will create some rules inside the policy. So we'll take a look at that. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to go custom here. I'm going to create a custom policy. So we do this custom policy. I am going to click next here. And I'm going to name this. So one of the things I'll do, I'm going to name this adaptive protection DLP. And I'm going to name this exchange online. And we'll call this what am I going to say? Elevated. Missed it there for a second. Elevated. Okay. So it's basically, and I'm just going to basically give it some meaningful description here. We can just say, actually, no, I don't want to do elevated, and I'll show you why that is in a minute. I'm just going to say, we'll say external sharing. We'll just say external sharing. I'll show you why I'm not going to do that in a minute, because this is the DLP policy that has adaptive protection assigned for external sharing via email. Okay, you get the idea. So, but now what I'm gonna do here is this is it. We're gonna see up admin units. Here's the important part of this. We're gonna be focused on email. Now, I'm going to show you something here real quick. So if we go to email here and I click next and I click this, we have to customize because we did customize. We didn't have a default rule set here. So I'm going to go here and if I go new rule, and I'm just going to show you real quick. If I go here, actually we'll see it right here. You see this insider risk. It's right here as a condition, automatic, right? Now, let's do this. Let's go back and I'll just show you this. And let's go to SharePoint Online. Click next. And I'm going to click next. And click rule. Okay. We are going to see that we do not have adaptive protection as a condition. Okay. We also don't see that. Let's go back. We also will not see that when we do OneDrive accounts. Okay. So we'll click here and we'll see that we do not have the condition, no insider risk level. Why is that? The reason is because there are other ways of doing it. We'll get to conditional access policies here in the next session. But the reason is because adaptive protection is more about user-centric, not data-driven, data-centric controls. And so SharePoint and OneDrive are more content driven, not user driven, right? So that's why we do get that. If we go to Teams chat, we can do the same thing in Teams. We'll see that we'll have an insider risk level here. We can do this in Teams. We can do this in devices. We can do this in other areas, but we cannot do it in SharePoint and in OneDrive or DLP for adaptive protection. Okay. So we're going to go email here. And so we got this custom here. Now I'm going to create a rule here. And I'm going to create this rule. And I'm basically going to create this rule. It's within here, so we can just make it simple. Elevated users, right? So we're going to make this rule that's going to apply to elevated users. Okay. Now, elevated users, and our condition is that the content is shared from 365 with users outside the organization. Now, the action is we're going to restrict access because this is going to be the highest one. Actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to block people outside. We're just going to say nope because you're at a higher risk. So I'm going to say no. We're not really trusting you, so to speak. I'm actually going to delete that real quick, and I'm going to go and add that action again. We're going to restrict access. And we're just going to block. That's it. And that's it. And then we're going to do user notifications. We're going to send notifications, notify people who sent. We're going to do policy tip. We can customize the policy tip if we want to. We're not going to. We show the policy tip as a dialog for the end user before send. It's available for exchange workload only. That's good. So we can show them this before they actually send it. We can allow overrides. We're not, because remember, this is an elevated user. So I'm going to be pretty tight on this one here. We're going to send alerts, and I might actually send it to additional folks if I want to. But then you can configure all of your alerting there. So that is basically the elevated rule, right? So let's start from the bottom here, and let's say, okay, let's do a minor users, right? Okay, so users that do not have really any risk or minor risk, but probably none. So the action here is basically going to be nothing. We're not going to do user notification. We're not going to send alerts. We're going to allow the action because they've shown not to be any risk. Now, you may or may not do this. We'll talk about it sharing externally. I'm just giving you some examples of what you can do with this policy. Okay, so we may, even for a minor user, still have some controls around it. I'm just giving you an idea that we'll kind of scale this up from a okay, we kind of trust, we kind of trust you to, yeah, we trust you a little, to not being trusted at all, right? And so now we're going to go, so we have a minor users, elevated users. We're going to do here a moderate users. So these are folks that do have some risk level. but not elevated by any means. It falls within that medium score. And again, that insider risk levels, you can modify that. You can adjust that. So the condition here, again, it's moderate risk, but also then content is shared outside the organization. Again, you can do whether this has SIT specific. So I could say, yeah, it contains a label or contains sensitive information. There's tons you can do there. I'm just being very simple here. And so from there now, remember this is moderate. So we're not going to block, okay? We're not going to block. So I'm going to allow the action, but in this case, I'm going to, I'm probably going to do some policy tips. Maybe some notifications. I might do that, might not, but at least I'm going to do policy tips. I may do a custom. So different things here. So we're going to kind of crank this up. I might do email notification to notify the people who sent the email. We're going to allow it, but we're going to really inform them that they need to think about what they're doing, etc. So just as an example, and I'm not going to really play into a whole lot of the options here, but that's basically our policies that we have, our rules within a DLP policy specific for Exchange online and specific for, in this case, just for sharing content outside the organization via email using 3 different rules that we have here: moderate, minor, and elevator. We're going to go ahead and go next here. And so we can run this in simulation mode. It will run in simulation mode, and and it's just going to report, basically. We can show policy tips while it's in simulation mode, and then we can turn it on if it's not been edited within 15 days. So if it goes 15 days and not been edited, it's going to, during the simulation, it's going to turn it on. Or we can just turn it on immediately. We're going to go ahead and let this thing run. That's fine. It'll be in simulation mode here. I recommend doing that. And so we're going to go next. And then we're going to submit this policy. All right, that's it. So we have this policy. We're going to click done here, and then this was going to update. And now we're going to see that we have one data loss prevention policy here. Okay, so it's letting us know that adaptive protection is alive for one policy in data loss prevention. We can create more data loss prevention policies for sure. And same thing with conditional access, which will be up next. We'll talk about conditional access and how that works. So we can click in here. We can see what that data loss prevention is, what it applies to, etc. And so we can get lots of information from that. Once it runs, it does take a little bit of time to get going. But otherwise, that's it. So that is our insider risk management or adaptive protection for DLP policies. So that's it. So I hope this has been helpful, and thanks for watching.